Okay. The meeting will now come to order. Notice is hereby given that a special town meeting of the electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of Guilford will be held Monday, March 16th, 2020 at 8:15 a.m. in the Guilford Town Hall, 31 Park Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purpose. To consider and act upon the recommendations of the Board of Selectmen to appoint up to 3 additional members to the Board of Assessment Appeals for 1 year in accordance with Chapter 5 of the Code of the Town of Guilford. Nominations are now in order for a moderator.
Nominate Matt Hood.
Second.
Are there any further nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you for that voice of support, John. To date, we have one member of our community, a longstanding volunteer, and I'm proud to say a fellow board member on the Board of Finance with me 2 or 3 years ago. Kim Brockett, who has actually filled in this, has worked on the Board of Assessment Appeals over the past number of years. So I would like to recommend the appointment of Kimberly Brockett to the Board of Assessment Appeals in accordance with Chapter 5 of the Town Code, the Code of the Town of Guilford.
Is that a motion?
That's
I'll
a
second
motion.
it.
Is there any further discussion? Other than, thank you for your continued service. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none. Motion carries. As there's no further business to be conducted at the town meeting,
We don't need to.
We don't
Up
need
to
public
3.
forum or anything?
oh yeah, probably public forum, right?
We don't have to move the
Sure.
alternate person?
What's that?
We don't have to move the alternate person?
No, we're moving Kim to that
just
position.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Public forum? No opposition, that's good. There being no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Kim, thanks.
Thank you very much.
And be healthy. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
All right, Charlie, I call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, March 16, 2020 to order. Charlie, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Public forum, anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, I would like to move some items on the agenda to accommodate Cliff Gurnham. Move item 5 up to, let's call it 2A. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Cliff? 5.1, discuss and take possible action to waive the bidding and contract with Fuss & O'Neill EnviroScience LLC for environmental consulting, CA, and testing services for the Melissa Jones Windows and Doors Replacement Project.
Good morning. Thanks
Good
for making the adjustment and moving me up. So we're planning on moving forward, hopefully in the summer of 2021 with a window replacement project for the Melissa Jones School. That project entails really the balance. We did a window project about 3 or 4 years ago that did about half the school. That was one age of the school. We're doing a different age group of windows. We've tested one window back in around 2011 when we did the original window project. And that was technically actually not supposed to be tested because it wasn't part of that other section, but got tested. It came back positive for PCBs. So now we need to do additional testing to confirm or make conclusions on really what the scope is going to be to replace this group of windows. So this is the proposal you have in front of you from Fuss & O'Neill. It's been reviewed by the Standing Building Committee. They recommended moving forward to under the state contract and awarding the work as stated before for the remediation plan and the testing It doesn't include the CA and testing during construction, because until we have a remediation plan, we don't really have a full scope of what will need to be done. So there'll be a second proposal once we have that remediation plan and the scope confirmed. So right now, we're just looking for the approval for this section of the work, the remediation, the filing with the state, and the testing in the amount of $27,732.
Any questions?
Yeah,
I'll move approval.
yeah, we'll move it in a second so we can discuss.
Discuss, yeah.
So Cliff, when you mentioned that a window had been tested many years ago and was positive for PCBs, just a couple of points on that. It's actually the caulk.
Correct,
right?
the
Around windows.
exterior caulk.
Exterior caulk, so it's not like there's PCBs, and it's only an issue once it's disturbed. In other words, when the windows are ripped out. Just in
Correct.
case somebody's watching this, trying to figure out what everybody's saying.
Right, and it's not like asbestos where, you know, there's potential for interaction with the students, because again, it's on the exterior of the building. It's not friable or easily broken up or disturbed.
So it's only an
So-
issue once the window's ripped out, so it's it affects the construction and
Correct.
the demolition and the reconstruction.
Right, so it's just like any other similar project, even when we do asbestos, we try to abate everything to the full extent, so that in the future, we just know there's no hazardous materials within the building or on the building for that matter.
Thanks.
And needless to say, protection from the children to Lewis Point, it'll be done when the children aren't around, or?
Correct, so the abatement would happen over the summer of 2021 when we remove the building, we remove the windows, yep. So it's gonna take us a year, obviously, to develop this remediation plan, file it with the state. We also have to do all the engineering, architectural work for the replacement windows, and that was recently awarded, I believe, at your last meeting with Silver Petroselli and Associates. So these two firms will work together to develop a plan with the removal of the windows. Yep.
Anything further? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recused, hearing none, motion carries. Which was 5.2, but is now 2A.2. Consider and take possible action to contract with Red Thread under state contract 12 PSX 0307 and floor water mitigation at Cox School.
Okay, so a little background on this one.
Yep.
So, about 3 years ago, we replaced the majority of the carpet at Cox as a project that we did as a improvement project. And then about 2 years after that install, the carpet itself started to fail, started to curl up. We were using the floor tiles, so they're 6x6 individual tiles that are normally glued to the floor. So the carpet manufacturer came in along with Red Thread. They determined that there was a defect in the carpet. So they came in, they replaced all the carpet and said you should be all set. Unfortunately, that carpet then proceeded to fail as well. So they came in a second time, replaced the carpet, and they used a different style of adhesive on the second round. That instead of using true adhesive, they have these little tabs now that you put down, and there's like double-sided sticky tape, and it's supposed to adhere the carpet to the floor. Unfortunately, that did not work either, and the carpet has once again started to fail. So they are speculating that we are a little too high. We're right on the verge with the humidity and water vapors coming out of the slab. So they feel that if we mitigate the water, it will stop the curling and the issues we have with the carpet. So the carpet company will completely replace the carpet. They'll do the full removal and install new carpet under warranty again, so there's no money out of the town's pocket or Board of Ed's pocket. However, they are asking, because it's above and beyond the original scope for the water mitigation, that we do the water mitigation. So they'll prep it, we pay for the water mitigation, we put the water mitigation down, and then they'll install the carpet. Normally, at the majority of the other schools, because we have a high concentration of water that comes up through the slab, we normally do water mitigation on anything on the first floor. So Adams is a perfect example. We've done, heavy water mitigation on all those rooms. Baldwin, we've done water mitigation at, Calvin Lee, most of the other schools, because obviously a lot of them are situated near wetlands or some sort of stream or something of that nature. So really, the only expense to us is this water mitigation. We're doing it through state contract, through Red Thread. So they'll come in with a water mitigation company and take care of everything. So we were going to do it during April break. However, as you know, we are closed right now, so we may look at trying to get this work done sooner, since the building is going to be vacant. And I'll talk to the superintendent more on that one this afternoon, So
I
the standing,
guess going forward with this water mitigation, are we admitting responsibility for the moisture content of the slab so that if future rug failures, they can point and say, well, it was a water issue?
no, it would rule out the water mitigation, or
Well,
water
we're
issue.
assuming that the water mitigation works and there does not continue to be a rug issue. My question is, if the rugs fail a fourth time, by us doing this and admitting responsibility for it, does this preclude them replacing the rugs if they were to fail?
I think if they were to fail a fourth or fifth time, because we're doing the water mitigation, that would alleviate us from being responsible that there is a water issue, because
Can
we
that be
resolved the
written
water
into
issue.
something? I mean, it's one thing to think it and hope it, but it just seems to me that by doing this, we're admitting culpability.
I do not believe so. Again, we're ruling out any.
Well,
potential-
hopefully, we're gonna fix the problem, but my
Correct.
point is, we don't know if, because we're depending on all those things. I just think
Well,
that
we
if
do
we
know-
had it in writing that, we're trying to help with their problem.
Right.
But if their problem, i.e. the rug, continues to be a problem, I don't want them to be able to come back and say, well, it was your water problem, you didn't fix it right.
I will look into that to see if we need council to get involved with.
Just, it seems like a couple of lines
Sure.
to say,
I'll look into that.
appreciate it.
Yep.
So the water mitigation means putting a surface, some kind of a protective surface
Seal
on
it.
top
It
of the
says, yeah,
slab
a
and
two-part like epoxy.
Okay.
Correct. We put a heavy-duty water mitigation film on the slab, so they clean up the concrete straight to a clean surface, and then they adhere this two-part epoxy to that, and that alleviates any moisture from coming up through that slab. And we've had great success, like I said, at multiple other schools, where, you've walked into a section of the building, you can almost smell the amount of moisture in the air. It totally alleviates that. So it really does a great job, so we shouldn't, if it's the moisture coming up, creating it, which we don't believe is the issue, at least we'll have a nice clean surface that's, doesn't have any moisture issues to adhere to, so.
Good. All right, is there a motion to approve the expenditures at $119,249.47 to Red Thread for the water mitigation project?
So moved.
I'll second it as long as we look into the issue I raised.
Good. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you, thanks again for moving me up.
No problem. All right, we're back to item 3, approved minutes, March 2nd, 2020. Anyone have any comments, questions, et cetera? No?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you had one? Okay, take your time. Go back up on the agenda.
On paragraph. Oh, yeah, so on paragraph 5, two things actually. Safe streets. There was some discussion that Ms. Millman had some comments and potential revisions to the resolution. I thought we had voted to approve it, subject to those changes getting done. Did we decide we were gonna wait to see the changes?
Yes.
And then vote, okay, well, that's what it says. So no change there. And then on number 10, the committee reports, there's it says, I explained that the fee committee is a meeting tonight to discuss the town hall fees. That really should say Town Hall South
So,
fees. And in fact, there's a meeting tomorrow morning with staff. I'll just jump ahead, but
there you go.
it's moving forward.
Good, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Is there a motion with that amendment to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recused, hearing none, motion carries. Mary Jane, item 4, Finance Director. 4.1, received the monthly report from the Finance Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to start with revenues.
There you go. Very good place to start.
Pretty much right on track where we were this time last year. Just got a couple things I wanted to note. Included in the Selectmen's revenue is a sale of a truck we had from Public Works to the waste transfer station, so you guys are doing pretty good at almost 1,000% over your budget. Under finance, I just wanted to say that we do anticipate meeting our budget. Obviously, our interest that we're bringing in specifically through our STIF account has been dropping because the STIF account is mainly market driven. So I have recently opened a new account with US Bank. It's an account that doesn't rely on the market. It takes your money and it divvies it out to different banks throughout the country, and all federally insured because they only do $250,000 to each bank. But we are looking to tomorrow move $5 million into that account. Those rates have dropped as well, but they have leveled off, and they won't be dropping as much as we anticipate STIF going down. So I'm hoping to mitigate some of that by diversifying some of our investments. So I just wanted to say we're doing what we can in the hopes of meeting that budget. So same thing in the fire department where we do anticipate meeting the budget there. As far as other departmental and the state revenue, I know the bond commission has been looking at letting our money go for the bond package, so we're hopeful that money will come in, as I've stated in the past. So, are there any questions on revenue?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to expenditures. Didn't really have much to report here. I will note that the legal budget is lower than anticipated, and I just want to note that's because we have all of those pending union negotiations coming up. So, that's really what that's for. So that will change. Yeah. Otherwise, pretty much where we're 67%, and we're 67% through the year. So things are right on track.
Who said budgeting wasn't a science?
Yeah, so it's a little, it looks like everything's still well within
Yeah,
range.
as far as, this year's been very steady. I think a lot has to do with the weather. Typically, we have a lot of ups and
Overtime.
downs with overtime in the public works area, and we haven't seen that. We had some early on, but it's been very steady. So I think that is really helping the budget as well.
Good, thank you. Excellent. Medical?
Medical fund, we had a little jump this month of February, over $1 million. Still showing that we are ahead of our budget this year. And the catastrophic claims had a jump as well. We're now up to 11 claims in that area. So in talking with our consultants, he thinks we're still on track to use that. So.
All right, and we're projecting about 1.2
Almost 1.3 at the
1.3,
moment,
yeah,
yes.
in surplus. Good.
Mhm.
We will have to chat with our friends at the Board of Finance to see if we
Mhm.
can continue to fund the OPEB
Okay.
trust out of
Mhm.
some of those,
Yep.
some of those surplus dollars. Good. Anything else? No?
That's great.
Good, thank you.
What was the number we were comfortable with in that surplus area?
I think we were talking at least 2.5 times the month. Our advisors want more than that.
Yes, minimum 2 months, so.
Which is how much?
Budgetary.
Worst case scenario.
I'd say we'd like to keep 3 million in there. That would be worst case scenario.
I agree. Good. Anything further on it? No. All right, 4.2, consider and take possible action on transfer to cover overages and debt interest and principal and recommend same to the Board of Finance at this evening's meeting. So I think you've talked about this a couple of times.
Yes, I've mentioned that we'd be bringing this up, so this is just to make those lines whole. We do budget a reduction for the premiums, and they are put aside in a couple different accounts, as you'll see from my memo, so I'm just requesting that those budgeted numbers be transferred in at this time.
Great. Is there a motion to move the funds as detailed in the memorandum?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 4.3, discuss and take possible action on the fiscal year 2021 budget. As you may recall, the Board of Finance made a minor revision to both our budget and Board of Education, $50,000 cut to us, based on definitive rates that we received from Kerma on some of our insurance policies. The recommendation is to reduce our workers' comp and LAP insurance by $25,000 each, based on the not projected, but the now firm insurance rates.
You'll see that on page 2 as a reduction, and I'll just add that the Board of Ed had similar reductions because we're all combined. So you most likely see reductions, 50,000 of the Board of Ed's reductions come from these similar lines.
Same lines, that's right.
Mhm.
Any questions? Anyone want to put that in the form of a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further questions or comments?
I do have a question, not related to that, because that makes sense, and it's helpful that we got those favorable insurance rates and gave us that flexibility. But goes to your comment earlier about finance and where we are for next year. I mean, I understand what you're doing for this year. Is that, it's way too early, and it's hard to know exactly where we're gonna be, but I'm scrolling here. I can't remember
Right,
exactly
we
what
did
the.
increase that budget by 100,000.
Right.
But as I mentioned at the public hearing, we didn't increase that budget up to where we anticipate being this year. So
Okay.
hopefully there's enough of a cushion there, and, we'll continue to utilize this diversification of our investments.
So there's other legally allowed, you have other legally allowed options other than just STIF, and there's a
Yeah.
chance of
I
working
think,
toward that
I
budget
think
target.
more, we're mitigating the downside
Yeah.
Right.
loss.
Right.
Right, our interest
Not
rates are still
necess-
going down, even
Right.
with this change,
Right.
but not as much, yeah, and this, I also looked at US Treasuries, that's even lower
Sure.
than STIF, so I feel this is our best option that's allowable within the purview
Well,
of the town.
and the reality is, it's entirely, I mean, you sort of say it's virtually zero now. I mean, they can go negative, interest rates, which is an interesting problem. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Right, I guess I would only say that, we'd hope that maybe some of the revenues are there.
Yep.
And we do have our fund balance to cover just such emergencies.
We just gotta do the best we can with the options that are available.
Sure.
They're just not
That's what
there,
I'm
they're
trying
not
to
there.
do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You gotta, there's a certain parameter as far as safety too.
The ultimate circumstance out of our control. I get it. Okay.
Unfortunately, the other side of that is, now's the time to borrow if there was something we knew we were gonna have to have.
You're right, Charlie.
And when I'm going to put in,
And we should lock in some fuel contracts when we can.
Funny, yeah, we have that kind of, and, hopefully when we do our refunding, we'll get some really favorable,
Okay, all right,
because we have that coming up as well.
great, awesome.
Good.
and to your point about zero or negative, in the refunding, if anything, because of our financial health, we'll probably be oversubscribed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, refusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Just one thing I might add, Lou, is the Board of Finance ultimately has the authority to determine what the projected revenues will be. And if they felt uncomfortable with that number, they could adjust the mill rate at the time that the budget passes, when they go to set the mill rate, to accommodate any changes on the revenue side. They would have the opportunity to do that and reflect it in the establishment of the mill rate.
Oh,
Which is similar to what they did last year in the other direction.
Yeah.
so post-referendum,
Post-referendum.
they can adjust
When they set the rate.
essentially revenue projections.
Right.
Correct, they have that right. Mhm.
Fascinating.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thanks for that, Matt.
You're welcome. Glad to be of some assistance here. All right.
This is being boring.
4.4, discuss and take possible action on bonding resolution as prepared by bond counsel. And in addition, we're sending the various school improvement projects for bonding to the Planning and Zoning Commission for mandatory referral pursuant to Section 824 of the Connecticut General Statutes. This is the bonds for upgrades to heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems at Baldwin Middle School and Guilford Lakes Elementary School. The replacement of windows, doors, and blinds at Guilford Lakes Elementary School, and future project design costs for various town schools. And I'd like to put that in the form of a motion with the board's indulgence that we waive the reading of the rest of the document. So that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? Whatever. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, refusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 4.5, consider take possible action on notice of the annual town budget meeting and budget referendum. We are required to set the date, time, and place of the annual budget meeting and approve appropriations of bond resolution for upgrades, et cetera, we just went through. And the establishment of the polling places. As well as the annual, setting the actual date on the annual budget meeting of April 7th, 2020, and the referendum vote of April 21st, 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll move it, but in the light of what's going on right now, we're right
Right.
in the midst of this.
Right, I want to give you an update. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right.
John?
Well, I just,
There are
options.
There are some.
To the meeting and to the,
Yeah, and we will be talking about the coronavirus incident shortly. One of the considerations here is that if we are to enable the Emergency Operations Center, that is in the fire department. And the big conference room there, it's traditionally set up in the back half. So we're exploring the options of alternative places for those. However, we think we're going, even if the EOC is operational, we think the front half will suffice. I've had some conversations with Gloria, and we think we can accommodate it in the front half of that facility. That's the only one that is potentially at risk of not being accessible. At this point, I think it's fair to assume that the schools are going to be pretty much empty at that point, but just one man's opinion.
there are no options. I can appreciate the location of it,
Right.
but there are no options as far as doing it online or anything like that.
We don't have the capacity to do that
Yeah.
at this point and to implement it. Now, there are the governor's recent executive order, and this was the one that came out yesterday, I think it was. I have not had a chance to go through it, nor have I gotten full guidance from CCM or cost. but there are considerations for adjusting budget schedules throughout, because this is going to be affecting not only us, but all of many communities in the state of Connecticut. And I think it's largely around the ability to conduct meetings so that the citizenry can participate. The good news for us is we're past most of those meetings. Yes, we do have the annual budget meeting, which is pretty perfunctory, and we traditionally are voting just to send it to referendum, albeit the fact that there is a provision that the budget could be reduced if certain conditions are met. 300 voters, at least 200 of which vote to reduce an appropriation in the budget.
Well, that's why, I brought it up. I mean, you're
So-
supposed to
so-
even meet with that
So,
level.
one of the things that we're allowing, they are relaxing the FOI rules, they are relaxing the requirements that all meetings have to be only attended live. And so Tony is looking at Zoom, Skype, and other technologies to be able to live stream these meetings, so people can actually not only watch, but be able to participate, ask questions, et cetera. And one thing I think you noticed, you may have seen, one of the previous governor's executive orders, the legislature is now allowed to vote by phone. So they can actually conduct, the legislature can conduct business by phone, and our understanding is that is, as a sub-governmental agency, we're gonna have that right to do as well. There's some guidance, I'm still waiting for some official guidance, this stuff is so
You
fluid.
gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
But for now, we still have to set the dates?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna proceed as if we're gonna proceed.
So I'll make a motion to set those dates. as-
Oh, we already did, we're
Oh.
voting in a second, so are there no further questions? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion.
We set the date, but don't show up.
Yeah, exactly, but more importantly, we've also set the referendum date as well. All right, item 6, Park and Rec Director, what did I miss?
Annual town- Did you do both?
Yeah,
You
we
did
did
the
both
both
at
at
the same
one.
time.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Quite all right,
Thank you.
thank you for questioning. Item 6, Park and Rec Director Rick Maynard. Morning, Rick.
Good morning.
How are things over at the center now that there's,
Nobody
doors are
there.
locked? The doors are locked. We'll talk about that in a minute,
I
but
have the boiler room open for the bus drivers coming through the boiler room.
I like it. All right, 6.1.
It's warm in there.
Consider and take possible action to award bid 6-1920 Nathaniel B. Green Community Center boiler. And Steve is here as well to
Yeah.
lend support.
So we had 7 bids, and the range was $241,849 to $346,750. Steve went to the building committee with the architect, and they recommended Central Mechanical Services. They were vetted, they did everything they needed to do, the standing building committee approved them as, they're a low bidder anyway. And so we're just asking that the Board of Selectmen award the bid to Central Mechanical Services. And we're hoping to get this done in June, I think, Steve,
Yes.
after the heating
Yes, so this
season.
prime heating season is over.
Over, good, good. All right, is there a motion for same in the amount, and the bid is $241,849. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
In a second. Any further discussion or questions? Call the
Well,
question.
I do have one question. I mean, needless to say, if we were ever going to make a change, this would be the time to make a change. And is this the most efficient system, for the next 15 to 20? How old is this system? It's got to be 20 years old, right?
The current system's about 28.
28,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, we're looking at a system for the next 25 or so years. Is there have we looked at the best systems going forward, technology-wise? I mean, here we are, I guess.
Steve might know better. I mean, the system is,
They're more efficient than what's existing.
Yeah.
They're condensing high-efficiency boilers, so yes, they are more efficient.
and we're reducing from 5 to 3, so that'll be more efficient
Yeah.
too.
Okay. So the technology is what it is going forward. And are controls part of this? Because I understand controls are always part of it.
It's still the train system, right?
Correct.
Steve, we're still
Yeah,
using the
system
same
tied in.
program. And that's tied in, that's part of the whole deal, that they've got to work with train to make sure that everything's going to communicate properly.
Okay.
Okay. I'm ready to vote.
Ready to vote? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
6.2, discuss and take possible action to waive the purchasing procedure and contract with Atlas Pyrovision Entertainment Group for the 2020 fireworks display. Rick, this sounds familiar, I think we did this for you last year, right?
Did, Atlas been doing it since 2000. Every year, we've gone out to get quotes, and they're usually the best quote anyway, or if there's someone who's lower, they're more like, they're small, I just couldn't handle what Atlas does. And the fire department's always been very, very supportive of Atlas. Their safety records is tremendous. I think everyone knows the display is great. We know what we're getting with them. And one of the other things is that they always, what they spec and say they're gonna bring, they bring what they said they're gonna bring. I mean, there's no cutting or cheating or anything like that. And fire department said they're always been very, very professional, good to work with. And the bottom line is, we know what we're getting. We know the show is fantastic. And so we'd like to ask that you approve going with Atlas Pyrovision again.
Good.
When was the last time that you did ask for quotes? You do it
2 years
for-
ago.
2 years ago. Okay. And how does this price compare to their price last year?
This is the same as last
Same
year.
as last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no inflationary adjustment either.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly happy to see that the fire marshal is comfortable with this
Yes.
organization, because safety
Yeah.
is clearly. Good, all right. Is there a motion to do so?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Anything further? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 6.3, consider and take possible action to purchase grass seed and fertilizer from the Site One Landscape off of the Capital Region Council of Governments bid. Rick?
The total amount for grass seed and fertilizer is $11,976.75. It's from Site One Landscape, which is right here in Guilford. And they do have the CROG bid numbers, so the prices are good. We don't get everything from them. There's another company called Tom Irwin that we are getting kind of more organic-based fertilizers from that company, and some other seeds through them too. But so we are splitting up. It's not all in one place. They also have the CROG bid, and they're under the, they're well under. They're like more like 5,000, I think, something like that. So we would like to continue to work with Site One Landscapes since they have the CROG bid, and be able to get the seed and fertilizer through them.
All right, is there a motion to approve the purchase off the CROG bid to Site One Landscape for, I think it's $11,976.75?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Anything further? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 6.4, discussion regarding an ordinance to govern town parking lots, in particular Quanapog and Jacobs Beach. Rick?
So the issue there, I think we might have mentioned this a while back, is that there are a lot of pop-up tents, especially on big weekends like 4th of July weekend and others, where they're all around the perimeter of the parking lot. And many of those pop-up tents have grills. And the commission's concerned about a couple things. One, it becomes a picnic area. Now you got little kids kind of running around in the parking lot, you know, kind of in between cars. And then when they finish grilling, where do the ashes go? They end up on the ground, because you can't put them in a trash barrel or, you know, plastic. And I did research and looked up. There is an ordinance, 214-3A1, which I think the ordinance is already there. We have to maybe just enforce it. It says it is unlawful to kindle or make an open fire in any area other than designated grills, except by written permission from the Parks and Recreation Commission and notification of the fire marshal. So one of the things we want to know, I mean, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but sometimes people bring their own grills, hibachis, or maybe even propane grills. And the commission want to know, does open fires apply to personal grills, or is it just grills that I think there's only one, maybe two grills that are behind the kiosk at Quanapog, you know, there's that little grass area and there's a grill up in there. So there are really a couple of issues. One is grilling around the parking lot and pop-up tents in the parking lot. And the commission doesn't have a problem with that grassy area if there are pop-up tents there. It's sort of a designated area, it's off the parking lot, it's away from cars.
Yep.
And
The grassy area to the right as you pull in?
Yes, yeah, kind of right, yeah, right behind the parking lot, behind the kiosk there, there's that, yeah, grassy area. People want to set up tents there, I don't think anybody has a problem with that, but we're concerned about the perimeter of the parking lot and the grilling that goes on there. So I think we're looking to have the Board of Selectmen maybe clarify the existing ordinance. Can they bring their own grill? And we have a designated area for that. And can we eliminate the tents in the parking area?
I personally would support both of those. If you folks are comfortable that you can contain, that there is an area that's appropriate for people to use their own grills alongside the two relatively small grills that are there, right?
Right, yeah.
We're not talking about big grills, that you basically can put about 3-4 hamburgers on it, I think,
Yeah.
as I recall, right? I don't have an issue with that as long as you guys designate the area. And then secondly, in terms of the tents, I agree. I think that's a danger. It takes up space that would normally be used for parking for other patrons. So I completely support that in the parking lot. Now, if you have an area where some of the tents can go, how many tents would be able to fit in another area, say, over where you're going to do the grilling?
Yeah, but we'll have to measure it out and get an estimate. From the top of my head, I'd say maybe 6.
Okay.
And,
Do you think
first come,
that's
first
big
served.
enough? I mean, I assume you're talking about like that grassy area between the fence by the road and the parking lot. I've often seen tents lined up
That's-
in
yeah,
that
that's
whole
where-
area, and that's, I can see where that's problematic, but I also can appreciate the convenience to visitors. And will that grassy area that we're hoping they go to, I mean, will it be big enough? I mean, you can appreciate that.
Can't accommodate all, again, I mean, yeah, 4th of July, sorry. My big holidays mixed up here. 4th of July was crazy last year anyway, and I think I was there, and I think I counted 21 tents. And I went to every one of them, and to make sure there was no beer, and there's one, and they were very, very courteous, they put it away. And I want to emphasize, even with all that, they're good about picking up the litter, they don't leave it, they pick it up and put it in plastic bags, and they bring it near the trash barrels, but then the raccoons get in it. By the time our guys get there on Monday, it's all over the place. So it's not a litter issue, really. The ashes are, because they just end up on the ground. And I guess what we could do is maybe get a metal trash bin in this designated area, a metal, and tell them if you're gonna grill, the ashes gotta go in there,
Right.
so that they're not left on the ground. 'Cause
That was gonna be my question, because, even moving the tents, you have to deal with the
Right,
ashes, so.
right.
yeah.
So I think we can get some metal trash.
And if you only have 6 tents, there'll be fewer
Correct,
extra grills.
yeah.
Is there any way to expand that grassy area? I mean, because,
Without taking down some trees, right?
Yeah, and it kind of goes up, there's a hill beyond that, so there's really not much more space there. I'm guessing on 6, and we can measure it out, but I'm just in my head kind of looking at the area. You gotta have a little space, between them. Maybe it's 8, I don't know, but we can figure that out, and we'll have signs, be first come, first serve, designated area, maximum, whatever number of tents we say.
Rick, the pavilion up the hill, is that by reservation
It
only?
is, yeah.
And I know, there's signs to that effect up there?
There's one on the pavilion, I think there is, I'm sure there is, because I know at Jacobs we have. And we actually created parking up there last year to get the picnic people, because more and more people are reserving that now. And we created some parking up the hill, I think we can get 8 or 10 cars. We lined it out, so, and we're encouraging people who are there for picnics to park there, so we have more space for the beachgoers in the parking lot.
are they reserving the pavilion for events or still just for day trips to the beach?
It's more, it's families and groups that are, just like Jacobs Beach, people rent a pavilion down there, they're renting it up there now also at Quantified. Groups, families.
If you take July 4th out of the equation and you reduce the space for people's tents, do you think most of the time not too many people will miss out when you're reducing the tents? I mean, I support this thing, I just feel, I wish there was a way we could accommodate people, but.
Every weekend, there are definitely tents. I mean, I'd be guessing to say how many are every weekend, but I know the problem is they're in the parking lot. If we can get them out of the parking lot, and you say, some people, you're not gonna get 20 in there for sure.
No.
Again, I think 6 or 8 You really can't get much more than that, I don't think. But will some people miss out? They probably will. But, I don't know, I mean, we're limited space. And this would apply to Jacobs too. The problem right now is quantified. We don't want tents, around the parking lot of Jacobs either.
Right.
So it's not an issue right now, but it could become one.
All right, we'll have Pam put something together in terms of tightening up the ordinance, reflecting these requests, as long as everyone is in agreement.
In agreement, yeah. I mean, if I understand this correctly, in the big picture, it's the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction of the parking
Parking
lot.
lot.
And it seems to me that a parking lot should have nothing happening in it. There should be no tents, there should be no
No
cooking.
grills, I agree.
It's completely
Safety.
unsafe.
Yeah.
So there should be a designated parking area that's just for parking.
Right.
If you've got space for something else,
Yeah.
that's park and rec.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And we would like this to be, if it's an ordinance, it should be enforceable by the police. 'Cause I can't have our 17-year-old gate guards. And
Right.
plus, if they leave their area, people are getting in, there's no one collecting the money, and they're walking down. And that's a
not their
long
job.
parking lot. They're going 200 yards down into the lot to try to tell somebody, put your fire out.
Right. And we ought to have signage, right?
Yes, we will,
Ought to have
yeah.
some signage.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right, I'll work with Pam on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. All right. Item 7, remove from table and take possible action on Guilford State Streets Task Force. You see the revised document. Really, there were only 2 changes, and they were highlighted there. There was, I think we replaced shall with should. And I worked through a series of other questions and concerns that Pam had, and we're comfortable with this document the way it is. As is the folks from the Safe Streets Task Force and our staff.
Great.
So,
We need a motion to remove from the table.
yeah, we do need a motion to remove from the
Second.
table.
There we go.
All right, is there a motion, is there any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve the
Make that
resolution?
motion to approve the resolution as well.
Second?
Second.
Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals. Hearing none, motion carries. Item 8. Mitch Goldblatt, Director of Human Resources, 8.1, consider and take possible action on a recommendation for initial care provider change.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you may recall, some of you, it's the Board of Selectmen that votes on and determines who our initial care provider is for in case of employee injuries. And today we're making a recommendation to make a change there. Sally Berezowski is the chair of the Employee Safety Committee, which is making this recommendation. I'm going to turn it over to her to explain what's going on.
Okay, so we have been using Concentra as our occupational health provider since April of 2019, when Ocnow went out of business. We have had concerns since that time with the length of time that people have to wait to be seen, appointment mix-ups, inability to reach them by phone in a timely manner, as well as extended wait times. So with that in mind, the safety committee went out and looked for other providers. Sadly, there are no other providers on the shoreline closer than the Concentra location, which is in New Haven. 3 members of the task force, or 2 and myself, went and visited the Yale New Haven Occupational Health, which is has an office located in New Haven as well as Hamden. We visited the Hamden office. The Hamden office was 5 minutes further than the existing Concentra location. However, it was easy on and off of the highway. It's in a medical complex with ample parking. It is very easy to get in and out of. The facility itself we toured was well organized and had everything that Concentra offered as well. So the safety committee would like to recommend that we move our occupational health services from Concentra to Yale New Haven Health Occupational Services. However, we do want to continue our pre-employment activities with Concentra. The cost of moving that to Yale New Haven Health was prohibitive. Any questions? I have some.
Where was the Concentra location?
In New Haven, off of
Also-
91.
Okay.
30th Street.
So the other concerns, you described the physical layout, and it
Mhm.
seems relatively easy to get in and out of and
Yes.
all that. But the other problems were more like red tape and appointments and things like that were not going well with Concentra.
Right, now
So-
we had used Yale New Haven Health previously,
Yeah.
in years previous, and we were very happy with
Yeah.
their services, but when Ocknow came into being and was closer, located closer, we moved to Ocknow, which we were also happy with their services until they went out of business.
Okay.
And this information sheet is helpful, thanks. So I was curious, well, apparently, for after-hour services, they can go to the Shoreline Medical Center.
That's correct,
But-
as it is today with Concentra as well.
Okay. Is there any chance that Yale would open up a clinic at the Shoreline Center? I mean,
No.
do they know, are there other towns that are using their services out here? Is there any way to lobby for that?
Goose Lane is only an emergency facility, so they do not have the.
Sort of evolving.
What's that?
It's evolving, it's growing.
Right. Currently, they do not have any intention of moving this kind of occupational health into the Goose Lane facility as to date.
The Goose Lane facility is one that they try to utilize the space for the higher profit, the higher value services to the organization. This is not a big profit maker for healthcare institutions.
I'm sorry, what sorts of services would this be? This is not emergency services when someone is injured.
Well, it's not emergency, but if someone's injured, if they have strained their back or, cut their finger, not seriously, but may require stitches, so they would go there. They treat the emerging issue as well as schedule follow-up. They are also in the business of keeping people at work. So they will, you can go to the emergency room and they'll say, well, you could stay out for a couple of days. Their primary goal is to get people back to work in some capacity as fast as possible. They also offer all the follow-on activities such as PT and that kind of stuff. And follow-up, they follow up on the case.
Okay, and can you estimate over the past year how many of our employees have needed this? Just to get an idea.
It would basically be anybody who has a workers' compensation claim, as I understand it.
Probably
would
one or
go
two a
to
week.
Got it.
Facility
Okay.
in the
All right,
first
thanks.
instance.
All right.
Yeah, we had one last week.
We had one last week?
Yeah.
We did. Let me just say also that the fire department, police department have also been using the Yale New Haven Health for some of their services because they were providing certain things that they needed for their testing that the Concentra didn't. And I've spoken to them, especially Assistant Chief Shove has been very supportive and very pleased with the services they've received there. So we feel confident that, as Sally mentioned, going back to Yale Health, it's just, the distance was the biggest detriment there, but at this time, it's certainly recommended.
This sounds dramatically different.
Yeah. Extra 5 minutes.
Right, and it was much easier to get into the building and park than Concentra.
What about the cost to the town of Guilford of one versus the other?
It's hard to say because we're still working with their, their costs. They run things through KERMA, so everything's going to be guided through KERMA anyway. KERMA, we do have to report once you vote. We have to report to KERMA that we've changed. This town of Guilford has changed its initial care provider from Concentra to New Haven Health, so they'll be on board. Other communities are using them as well, so I don't know the exact, and it's hard to say what the costs are, you know, we haven't broken down necessarily, but since we used them before and we haven't had any real issues, Kerma will be monitoring that. I think we're safe to move forward.
All the costs are within the workers' comp.
So it's,
Right. but
All the
it's-
expenses are paid,
so it comes to us.
so it
through
goes to
our-
Kerma, and
But it
then
comes back to us in our
our
bill.
cost is adjusted
Yeah.
as the annual audit hits. and
Exactly.
We have to deal with whatever they're gonna say. Last year did.
Yeah, it does.
Are there any,
Yeah,
but
but
to
that's
that,
a very real number. Controlling workers' comp costs is,
that's Sally's point, their job is.
And we had a 0% increase in our workers' comp claims, not claims,
Other
but
years,
our
it's,
premium, yeah. But that's largely on your experience modification.
That's using the one that we're switching from, though.
No,
No.
no.
No, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think it mostly had to do with
Okay.
the number of claims and the severity of claims as opposed to who we were using.
Got it.
We did not move to Concentra for cost purposes. We moved to them because
Services.
we had no other place in the shoreline. I mean, basically, the same building was used by 3 different entities since I've been here. We started with St. Raphael's Occupational Health. They closed up shop. Yale took over that same building over in Branford, right off exit 54. And Yale took it over. Then Yale moved out, and then Ocknow moved in, and Ocknow has moved out. The problem is Yale didn't move back in. We've got no choice. There's nobody in Branford right now serving this or Guilford serving this kind of service to us, and this is a recommendation that I hope you'll approve.
Good. Anything further? Is there a motion to move to Yale New Haven Health for the services that we've described from our current provider, Concentra?
So moved.
Second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, nice job.
Thank you.
Item 9, discuss an update and provide an update on the COVID-19 and town Board of Ed preparations. This is a rather dynamic dynamic environment we're in relative to COVID-19, as most of you know from watching various news sources. Last week, we made a decision to curtail the senior programs, largely out of the concern because that is the highest at-risk population. So we curtailed all senior meal programs, with the exception of Meals on Wheels, okay? Because that is, we're talking about groups locating and getting together in town facilities. So we canceled the lunches and the breakfast. We also canceled all of the senior programs, and that was the initial step. On Friday, Thursday or Friday, I can't remember, the days are running together now. We canceled all programs, and then on Saturday, we made the decision to shut the facility down entirely at the community center. We also made the same decision as it relates to the library. The guidance we've been given by the Department of Public Health suggested no more than gatherings of no more than 100 people. So that was our first our first attempt was to limit it to 100 people. At this point, we're not controlling those on open spaces at beaches and parks, etc. But you'll see a request from me in a minute that may give us the opportunity to curtail even those types of events. Some of the things that have happened, the library is starting to look at ways that they can continue to provide services. Drive-by book.
Curbside.
Curbside, yeah,
Curbside,
curbside, that's right. We're talking about the same thing for Meals for Seniors. As you may realize, I think most of you have been to one of the senior lunches and served. For many of them, that may be their only real square meal of the day. Unfortunately, for a number of others of them, if not all of them, it is a major part of their socialization. So we've been working with the Guilford Interfaith Volunteers, who have indicated a willingness to step up. We put out a call for additional volunteers for more meals to be delivered. The Meals on Wheels folks are working with Rick and his staff in terms of this curbside pickup of meals. So that's all starting to evolve. But I think the reality here is, it's not a matter of if it's gonna get worse, it is a matter of it will get worse. Take a look at the other major countries, and we're here on that curve, right? So the curtailing of those activities, I think, made the most sense. Rick?
Now, if I had, one thing we are still doing too is
Correct.
essential bus rides for medical
Yes.
lines.
Yes.
And shopping for now, as
Right.
long as stores are still open, but those are, people have to get their groceries, we still do that for the seniors. And for those who need to get to a doctor, we still have our buses bringing them.
Right. Thank you, Rick, for that. Yeah, those are essential services for folks, for that population, there's no question. So, I have to say at this, and I should have started with this, Dennis Johnson, our health director, is doing a phenomenal job of working with the stakeholders in the community. He and I were going back and forth over the weekend with the library, with Rick, with the Guilford Housing Authority. There are some significant challenges with the Housing Authority because it's not just elderly housing, there's also disabled housing. And there's a wide range of folks in terms of what those disabilities are, so there are challenges there. And Dennis is working closely with the state epidemiologist and the Department of Health as we look to make the decisions that will eventually be necessary to make. We also had convened, and Rick was part of this, we've convened a couple of meetings with specific departments to talk about the impact of closing. I have a core team that consists of Dennis Johnson, who I've given him the leadership role on in terms of managing our response to the virus. The fire department, police department, building, public works, HR, and who am I missing, Mitch? Is that pretty much it? I think that's it, in terms of, that's sort of the executive team that's meeting and managing this process. To that end, there are a number of communities throughout the state that have decided to make local disaster declarations. Now, there are some reasons, and Pete's here. Pete, if you want to come up to the table for a minute, please. There are certain powers that are granted to chief elected officials as a result of emergency declarations. And one of those, this is Connecticut General Statute 28-AA. And you'll see, Chief Executive Officer of the municipality in which a major disaster or emergency occurs, or his designee may take such action as deems necessary to mitigate the major disaster or emergency and to secure and preserve any documents and evidence pertinent to and necessary for a future investigation. So that's the state coverage. Our town code also contemplates emergency management and has similar language relative to emergency executive powers. And again, what I don't want this to reflect is, this is Matt Hoy making a power grab.
We knew it.
But there are a number of communities, including our friends in Madison, New Haven, and no doubt many, many others contemplating and/or implementing declarations of local civil preparedness emergency. There will be decisions that need to be made that are not going to be that well received in the community by all portions of the community. As you've heard, there are people calling for shutting down of restaurants, of any gatherings of restaurants and businesses. There are people calling for limiting the number of patrons that could be at a restaurant. I think you've seen some are limiting it to half their capacity, some of those things. At this point, we don't feel we need to do any of those things. But what I would like to do is to get the support of this board, perhaps in a resolution in support of the first selectman being able to declare the local civil preparedness emergency at the appropriate time, based on consultation with that executive team, and in particular, Dennis Johnson would be is my go-to guy on this in terms of these types of activities. So, while I don't, by statutory authority, I don't have to ask for support on a resolution, but I wanted this to be something that we all weigh in on. Pete, what am I missing?
Well, so a couple of things.
Yeah, please.
The declaration of a local civil preparedness emergency is by the chief executive officer, in this case, obviously, the first selectman. And what it does is, the consequences, two things in particular under the statutes. And that is, it activates our emergency plan of operations, that booklet right
Just a couple
there.
of pages thick, so.
Okay, and it also authorizes the first selectman to request or furnish aid to other communities under what's called the Interstate Mutual Aid Compact, of which we are a member. The benefit of that is obviously that emergencies like this often impact multiple contiguous communities, and this would authorize requests for assistance and to provide assistance when asked. There are some conditions to that, and one of which is that the community asking, or providing for that matter, service has to have declared this local civil preparedness emergency. And of course, there's obviously quite a bit more to it, but even if we were to provide services by our community to another community, there are still protections built under the statute. We wouldn't have to in any way jeopardize the reasonable protection of our own community. It also allows that if there is a federal reimbursement to communities participating in that mutual program, we would be able to share proportionally in the reimbursement as well.
Good.
And I'll add this too. By declaring this, I think it's also clarifies for our purposes that we consider ourselves to be under an emergency situation, and that both the statutory provision that Matt had mentioned and our our code provision have also been activated as well, that authority.
Good. Questions or comments or concerns?
No, I mean, it certainly seems like it's a serious and evolving problem that everybody's trying to deal with, and we should have as much local flexibility to act quickly as circumstances develop. I mean, it seems like it makes sense.
Yeah, especially, as your example was that, you've already had a week and weekend of dealing with these things, and, I have no issue whatsoever of authorizing yourself to do whatever's necessary to keep the town and its citizens safe. I thought one particular note here on the first handout, as far as the
State statute?
yeah, I mean, the bottom one where we were just talking about workers' comp, this would authorize, my understanding is if Matt ends up enacting this emergency situation, that it would allow people who may be injured in assisting during a major disaster to be eligible for workers' comp. I mean, that seems pretty logical to me. Whether, I guess it means whether they're town employees or not, but if you're helping somebody and you get hurt, I think we ought to help them as much as we could.
I think that was the design for volunteer firefighters.
I was gonna say like supernumeraries back when towns had.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
That's what that sort of feels
Yeah,
like.
but I mean, is it
But the
my
government-
understanding that neighbors helping neighbors would actually be in the same situation at this point, or it'd have to be somebody that we sent?
Correct.
Okay.
Official.
All right,
Yeah.
still worth it. Good.
Yeah.
All right, does someone want to propose a resolution supporting my,
See if I can
Yeah, you
pull
want-
this off here.
yeah.
So I would make a resolution to authorize Matt to act in accordance with Connecticut General Statute, Section 28-8A, to respond to an evolving civil preparedness emergency that we're facing, and to also exercise his authority set forth in our local ordinance 27-3, as he deems necessary to respond to the circumstances as they develop.
You okay with that, Peter?
Why-
He authorizes the,
Does that authorize all these other things, PA 88, all of those listed there, and
I think it might be a good idea to specifically authorize the declaration of a local civil preparedness emergency.
So we're declaring it that?
no,
Oh,
But to authorize
Matt
for
to declare?
selectmen's declaration of that.
okay. Oh, okay, so add to what I,
As
the
necessary.
motion then, and give Matt the authority to declare a civil emergency.
I think he has the authority, I think what
Yes,
you're
support.
looking for, Matt, is
just
support.
support.
That this board would support that declaration as is necessary.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Hope you got that, Tracy. Sorry, it was in 3 pieces.
Give me something to do this week.
All right, any further discussion on that piece?
No.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Mitch, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Pete, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete.
And we'll be talking later in the day. Are you gonna be able to join us at 11, you think?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Mitch, I'm gonna put you on the spot. We have provided some guidance to our town employees, which, relative to how we're going to operate. At this point, we have not sent anybody home. Even the library folks are in there, there's work that they can do. Rick's got an arm's length list of maintenance items that his staff is gonna be working on, things they normally can't get to. But Mitch, you wanna just talk a little bit about the parameters we set up for employees impacted by, and I know I know you've got a copy of it there somewhere, right?
All
So-
right, so this went out to employees on Friday, and like everything else in this situation, it's fluid, as the word has been used before, but this is where we stand at the moment. Any employee who has compromised health issues, and I don't have to explain what those are at this point, should notify their supervisor, who in turn should notify the director of health for follow-up. If symptoms continue, they should stay home until further guidance or contact their healthcare provider. Anyone who has a compromised health condition, existing health conditions, are encouraged to discuss their health and well-being with the Director of Health and with myself. So we're aware of it, aware of who may be in a compromised situation. Any supervisor who have employees who are demonstrating a respiratory illness should be sent home. And everyone's being made aware of that. That's the situation. We also put in, this has been standard in a lot of these things that have been gone out to employees through other towns, although I don't think it really applies to us. Anyone who's traveled to a country designated as level 2 or level 3, as designated by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, must alert their and since March 1st, must alert their supervisor, Director of Health, and the Director of Human Resources immediately. Anyone who is well but has a sick family member at home with no potential risk factors are considered low risk, but should notify their supervisor and self-monitor for symptoms. Employees who need to stay home to care for a sick family member during the COVID-19 will be able to use any accrued leave, including sick leave. During this situation only, the ability to use the maximum number of sick days for a family member, which varies, but typically is 3 per instance, by personnel policies and by collective bargaining agreements, is being waived. So therefore, by Matt's decree here, if someone has to stay home with a sick family member, they can stay home for more than 3 and use more than 3 sick days. Employees who need to stay home to care.
Do you want us to hold our questions?
Yeah,
to
we,
the end?
maybe it'll help if I go through the whole thing. Employees who need to stay home to care for a child who's not attending school due to COVID-19, we know that that's happening all over now, will be able to use any available accrued leave, including sick leave for that, and the same recommendation prevails that they can use more than the 3 days that they would normally only be allowed to use for a child. Unless approved by the first selectman, any out-of-state travel for work is suspended until further notice. Matt's already discussed what's happened at the community center about the meal programs, events, activities, including the extravaganza. Originally scheduled for April 4th have all been canceled at this point. We mentioned the schools that were closed. That's now old news. Now, if the first selectman decides that there will be a partial closing or full closing of any building or buildings, employees will be notified through our VOCI system, email, phone, etc., and we'll notify people that way. Any employees asked not to report to work, who were scheduled to work on that day, will be paid for the hours they were scheduled to work. Any employee who has pre-scheduled vacation or personal days will be allowed to reschedule those days. However, employees who have the capability of working from home, we're still figuring out who should and have that designation, are expected to do so remotely during this time if we do declare, Matt declares actually, the closing of any buildings or recommends or declares that certain people not come to work. We've set up an essential personnel, which certainly
fluid, too.
can be fluid as well. I don't have to go through who all those people are, but basically just keeping things moving that need to be kept moving at this point. And finally, we do recommend that employees, it's unsettling and it's stressful. And a lot of people have been dealing with this in different ways. Some are able to laugh, others are able to cry. But nonetheless, we do recommend that if people feel the need, we've given them the access to our EAP, who has also reached out to us to say they are prepared to handle those kind of calls with employees and family members that feel the need. And then the last thing we did is just give the guidelines that you've seen 100 times over about, how to greet people now, not by shaking hands, using soap and water. We've also recommended that people still get a flu vaccine if they have not already. And the reason for that's twofold. Number one is we don't know, and I'm not speaking as a health professional, we don't know if that has any effect at all in trying to mitigate the factors of this virus, but also the symptoms of the coronavirus are so similar to the flu that if we can prevent those people who have the flu and not the coronavirus from getting there, there'll be less people that are certainly impacted and scared that they may have something they don't. And finally, when using if people share town vehicles, we're asking them to wipe down the steering wheel and other touch points on a vehicle if they're sharing with other employees. So that's where we're at the moment, and there's more to come.
Yeah.
And I will be asking Matt for some advice on a few things already this morning, but I don't feel it's necessary to bring those in public at this point.
Right, and we are also meeting, have a department head meeting at 11 o'clock, where we're gonna start to talk about the essential services, and at some point, we may even identify, while we're not closing operations, how do we reduce staff to limit the exposure? Again, and the point is, who can work from home, what kind of capacity we have. There are some people who just aren't gonna be able to work at home. We understand that. They're, at this point, they're going to be classified as essential, and we're going to keep those operations open. It is my personal belief that government should remain as stable and as much of a constant in these types of times and crises. However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be practicing what they're saying we should be practicing with the various social distancing and those kind of things. I believe New Haven shut down public access to the city hall
As did West
last
Hartford.
night. And, I think our friends in Madison are going to establish appointments, interactions by appointments only. So there's a world of opportunities here that we're going to start to take a look at, and that's why I want to work with my staff, the department heads today, to start to identify what the range of options are. But again, my belief is that government can be a stabilizing factor during crises like this. Now, one of the things that I talked about, we have a Board of Finance meeting tonight. And we, at least one member who is not going to attend because does not feel that it's appropriate to attend, all right? So we're going to look at, as I said, Skype meetings, Zoom meetings, those kind of things to allow for public input. We're going to actually try to pull that off for tonight for the Board of Finance meeting. I'm going to be recommending that that we look at the board and commissions that meet on a regular basis. My first reaction is we should probably curtail all those but those that deal with regulatory or fiduciary responsibilities, owing to the fact that certain things have to continue to happen. There are planning and zoning requirements, dates and postings and hearings. Now, I think we're going to start to see some relaxing of all those things from the executive order that keep coming out. But at this point, my recommendation is going to be for general boards and commissions, only those that have a regulatory or fiduciary responsibility. So,
If I can add to that, I happen, in another capacity in the town of Orange, I'm the chairman of the Orange Recycling Committee that has a meeting this Wednesday, and we were trying to figure out where we would meet concerning that the Orange Community Center is shut down, where we normally meet. I spoke to the Freedom of Information Department on Friday about Zoom or Skype, and the question I went through with the attorney there was, the public accessibility of having a meeting where the public would be shut out if you try to hold something on an email or a phone. But by utilizing a Zoom meeting, you can, and post it that way, you can allow the public to attend. And that is exactly what I've set up. I think I'm probably the first, and maybe in the state, first in the Orange for sure. We're going to set up a Zoom meeting. We're going to give it a shot on Wednesday. So I'm certainly hoping that what Matt has mentioned would be, because they were asking, as I was on the phone, they're asking each other questions, what do you think, and it came out as long as we post it, as long as the public at this point has the opportunity to call in or webcam in, and you keep the accurate minutes, they thought it was a reasonable way to do things. It's a new world, running meetings, so we'll see what happens. So I think it's definitely a possibility of running meetings that way.
And when you say you post it, so you would post the actual link information?
Right, so the agenda that I had sent last night to my town clerk in Orange actually says, instead of meeting at the community center, it says we're meeting via Zoom with the link and the phone number for those that don't have a webcam. They can call in as well. I've never done this before. I'm giving it a shot. We'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic. And I think it's a way of us, not just but any other boards and commissions of actually meeting without being physically in the same room and still allowing public accessibility.
Right. So people don't need any special equipment. They need a computer or a laptop.
Internet connection.
Yeah.
And an internet connection.
And if they want to be seen, they have to have a webcam connected to their laptop. And most people do at this point, not everybody, but you can still get in, yeah.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions, concerns, suggestions on things that we should be considering or we haven't been?
The only thing that popped up a little bit, I was noticing, and maybe you can relate to it from your experience in Orange Recycling Center, is making sure that people, as they use these, reusable bags and everything, that they wash them with soap and water every time they take them into a store. Because, you're dragging it to a store and you're dragging it home and it sits there and you gotta wash them.
Yeah, more concerning to me, off topic a little bit, more concerning was I went to the supermarket yesterday and people were taking wipes and wiping actually the shopping carts as they were taking, because that's a surface where, unlike the bag so much, but that's a surface, a hard surface that the...
Stores have had wipes at that point for a long time anyway, so now everybody's going to use them.
That's how people use them.
Exactly. Just one other thing, and this is mostly for those in the viewing audience. We have started to utilize the mass notification system. We sent something out on Friday, and I sent something out again on yesterday. Saturday. It was Saturday? Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I tell you, these days are just rolling together. So There is a link on our website, the town's website, that will allow folks to sign up to get those notifications if you do not already have them. It is my intention that that will be the primary methodology for communicating with the community. Yes, we will be doing some stuff on our website and our various social media stuff. Tracy's going to be pretty busy for a little while, and we'll try to provide timely updates. I'm not going to commit to a message per day, but we're going to be.
I'm interrupting you only because I think we've many times talked about the mass notification. We don't want to we don't want to be annoying to people. I think in this case we should do exactly the reverse.
Right.
And I don't know if a daily communication from you is necessary, but I think communications from you to the public through that is very comforting and encouraging. And I think I think the website blah 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 is great, but I think updates from you are excellent, and I don't think we should use it as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
Because
link
people-
it to the Board of Ed too, make
Right.
sure.
Yeah, because
Both,
people
right.
will definitely get that, because it comes in 3 ways, doesn't it? I mean, it comes with your True Voice or in email or
text.
a text, and it's just comforting.
Well, you're just
Thank you.
aware of things. I mean, because if you don't get the facts from the first selectman or from this board or
Right.
department head or something, then everybody's out there speculating, is the rec center open, is the library
Right,
open?
and I don't think we
It's
should
late.
apologize, if you had to make 2 in a day, you
They're
make
gonna
2
make-
in a day.
yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's just the way it is.
The one that I'm hoping to do today, working with Dennis on this, is just a message about the appropriate steps to take when you think you're sick. Who do you call? What is the expectation of getting tested? That kind of stuff. So just a summary of the process, and then also just reiterate the best practices relating to social distancing and hygiene and that stuff. I don't think we can go wrong by communicating on a regular basis.
Sandy's point, probably the best quote I read this weekend was, at this point in time, we'll never know if we're overreacting, but a few months from now, we'll know if we didn't react enough.
I agree. That's a great line. I like that. I like that.
It's absolutely true. I'd rather err, to Sandy's point, I'd rather aggravate everybody and keep them safe and healthy.
Yep, agreed. And again, I think, unfortunately, we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to make some decisions. And hopefully, we're going to get guidance from our federal and state government relative to some of those decisions. I'm not looking forward to having to make that decision myself, that we close restaurants, we close stores, other than grocery stores and pharmacies, which is what has taken place in Italy, and then there are a lot of communities that are starting to contemplate that. But hey, when we get there, we're going to make the decisions based on the best information we have and the best guidance we have. So,
The only other note I'd like to make is twofold. First of all, we're in the midst of budget cycle, and stay posted, the camera stay posted about, referendums and all of that important stuff. But also, I'd like to comment as a member of this board, and we've already authorized yourself to make any decisions based on emergencies, but I know I would be very supportive in any decisions you have to make as far as taking care of our taxpayers or our employees. If it becomes budget issue or any of those kinds of decisions, I know I would be very supportive of doing what you have to do to take care of our employees, to take care of our citizens now, and we'll deal with it.
thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. Good. All right. Well, thank you all for your interest and your input. And guess what? We're going to get there collectively. It's all of us doing this stuff. So, once again, I'm going to say the staff has been tremendous in terms of their response so far. So. All right, item 10, discuss and take possible action to set a public hearing date of March 31st, 2020 at 7:30 PM at the Town Hall to receive comment on the town's application for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant. This is a follow-up on, I can't believe it's a year already, so we're going back in again for more funding. Yeah. So is there a motion?
So moved.
And a
Second.
This is pretty, this is pretty perfunctory. It's a requirement by the Community Development Block Grant Program that we hold these kind of hearings, so.
Do we know how many people have taken advantage of this?
The housing rehabilitation one, I think we have 17 families on there that are either, and I think there's about 7 or 8 of them that have been completed. The other are in progress, and it's pretty close to the full 350,000 that would be left over after the administrative fees taken by those folks. And then, ironically, we also had to file a notice of intention to renew on the housing diversion program, even though we haven't seen the dollars from the first year yet. But that's on its way. We'll note that one of the individuals on the housing rehabilitation program, the need was so significant that it exceeded the $30,000 limit that's imposed by this program. And we received, Lisa Lowe and Associates found another funding organization out of Hartford that is going to supply $25,000 in grant money to that individual. So one property is going to get $55,000 in safety, health, and environmental improvements. So
Great.
all right. So call the question, right?
All in
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. All right, item 11, appointments and resignations. And I'd like to make this one, 11.1, reappointment of Dean Mitchell to the Board of Fire Commissioners for a term to expire October 16th, 2023.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 11.2, act on appointment of Jeff Spooner to the Conservation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 11.3, act on the reappointment of Colleen Otis to the Housing Authority for a term to expire March 31st, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Charlie, request for town property, please.
Okay, we'll invoke the Gary McElhenney
Rule.
amendment or rule or whatever, and the first one will be Youth and Family Services for the purple flags. I don't see a date there, I can open each one. Christ Episcopal Church, a sign on the green for their pancake breakfast on March 29th. Art League, a sign on the green for July 17th through the 19th for their art exhibit on the green, obviously fine. Guilford Fund for Education, their spelling bee, a sign for April 24th, and that's it. I'll move them all.
I'll second that list.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 13, committee reports. Anything further since the last?
I know that the not-for-profit developer NeighborWorks has met at least once with the town departments relevant to the ongoing completion of the project, i.e. the engineer, building official, et cetera, and those meetings have gone well. We were going to have a meeting tonight of our housing committee, but George can keep us informed through email, and we decided we did not have to have a meeting tonight. There was nothing that we needed to vote on right at this moment, so.
Okay.
But the project is still going forward.
I'm also going to report, because the vice president of the board for the Center for Children, and I had a conversation. They met directly with the developers,
Okay.
As had been promised, right? And I'm pleased to report that they are thrilled with what the developers come back with. They
Great.
have a modification to the design that may only call for 4 buildings as opposed to 5, which creates additional buffer between that last building and there. They said they were addressing, they were earnestly addressing the parking considerations they had. and also would help them with the drainage problem that they have as well as
Right.
part of the.
Which the drainage problem is not being exacerbated by this project, but can potentially be improved.
Improved, exactly, so.
I would encourage the sidewalks too. I thought the point in the public hearing about sidewalks, if there was ever an opportunity during the construction period, this would be it. To, even if it has to be on the museum side of the street, just to
Yeah.
make that,
Connection.
if you're gonna redo the river and bridges and, whatever, okay.
No, it's a great point, it's a good opportunity, it's a great
Yeah.
point.
I mean, so many other construction projects, I noticed on U-Haul, they didn't want a sidewalk on the other side of the road, but they put one on that side, why?
Planning and zoning made it.
But that's
and
part of the
actually-
requirement.
Actually, as part of the,
Site
the
plan,
taking
sure.
down, the taking down of the water tower, I got the water company to commit to putting in a sidewalk along that stretch as well.
That's the time to do it, when they have it.
Absolutely, and they were happy to do it.
Right.
They're happy to do it, so,
Great.
yeah. We already talked about the.
Yeah, they're meeting, Mark, at the Town Hall South, the various departments are gonna come through with proposals, if they're making, I sent it to Veronica as well, so. It's just to get some specifics on this, which has been coming together for a little while. Good.
And when we had our meeting with just Lou, Veronica, and myself about ongoing, I don't want to say revision, but just looking at the fees, because some of them haven't been looked at. I don't think it's our intention, us or the committee or this board, that we are just going to sit down and raise every fee willy-nilly. We're just going to see realistically what they are and which ones haven't been reviewed in a long time, and as we did with the building permits, raise them if it seems reasonable, and we didn't raise them up to the top in any way. But I mean, it's not just like we're gonna sit down and just put a 10% increase across the board or anything like that.
And that's another department, when you meet with the department heads later today, the increase in the grand list was very important to this budget cycle, so we don't want building permits to take a 2-month step back. So,
Right.
whether it be by appointment or some way, like you said, we
Gotta keep it
gotta keep,
rolling.
government's gotta keep going, so.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're just at the initial phase of the implementation of the online permitting system too. Yeah.
That's why we're doing it.
That's
why.
right, yeah, exactly.
For the next emergency, we'll be ready. But, we have to still deal with it, to your point. I mean, I
Moving in the right
think,
direction.
if we demonstrate that, your town government is here doing its job, I don't want to say it's business as usual, but at least we're under,
Sure.
we're
We're
watching.
available, too.
Yes.
That's the
Trying to
important
find a way to make it work
thing. Yep,
despite all the challenges.
yep, there you go, well done.
Perfect. Okay, anything under correspondence? No, old
No,
business, new business, public forum? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Makes the motion.
Second?
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all.
Fabulous.